Welcome, everyone, to the Goddess Vibration Podcast. This is Allie.
And this is Tiara.
So, I have a question for any of you who's interested in energy work or who has ever been taught energy work. Today, we're going to talk about energy work and more specifically Reiki. I was introduced to Reiki when I was maybe 12. And the only reason why I was like 13, 14. And the only reason why I was introduced to this is because my mother became a Reiki practitioner, and I have no idea. To this day, I barely know what it is. And Tiara just so happens to be a Reiki practitioner and a womb light practitioner. And there are amazing benefits to energy work. And so we wanted to talk about it today on our podcast just to educate you for anyone who's curious, because I feel like things like energy work just so happen to be popping up in the new age and spiritual circles. And I don't think that there's enough information out there. So we want to talk about it.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's enough information out there either. And we know how the internet space can be when it comes to information. So I just I wanted to share a little bit about my experience with Reiki and what I've learned and discovered just through extensive research, because I feel like the representation of Reiki that we see in some of these internet and online spaces isn't full true Reiki. Now, I do know that today in 2025 that there are many different lineages and different types of energy that are tied to Reiki, offshoots of Reiki that people perform and do, and that's their lineage, and I respect that. And, do you and do what works for you. I'm not here to shift anyone's beliefs or perspective when it comes to their energy work. It's just I'm of the belief personally that um, I guess I'm a traditionalist in that sense. Like, I truly believe the way Reiki was intended and meant to be done is the way that Usui had originally um, channeled it and structured it. I just resonate with that style and method. And I just think that there was still so much untapped potential when it comes to the way he did it, because we've shifted away from that so much. So I was actually introduced to Reiki probably back in 2020. It was post awakening, and I was in Nevada, of all places. I think maybe Vegas, Reno. I can't remember. I was in Nevada, and I wanted to get some Reiki done, and it was cheaper to get it done in Nevada than it was in California. And I think I was out in Nevada for a specific endometriosis awareness event that I had gone to with my sisters. And so I was like, I'm out here. Might as well just go see if I can find some affordable Reiki. I've been really curious in it for a while. So I ended up going to this woman who was local to the area, and she was very reasonable. And her method of doing Reiki was with a pendulum, which I've seen some people do, I guess, to probably help her guide the energy. And I remember just laying there, relaxing, and just feeling in my core so much warmth. Like, it just got so hot, like not an uncomfortable hot, but just this intense heat sort of that I felt radiating from my core. And I was like, is this normal? Like, are you using like a heating pad or something? And she was like, no, my energy just feels warm like that. And I was just like, this is incredible. And I just remember walking away from that session being completely like in awe of this, that this was a real thing, that I felt and experienced something that was completely energetic. So I started to explore a little bit, and having been a victim of endometriosis, uh, me and my sisters all have endometriosis. And so, oftentimes we will go to events and do like, or support fundraisers and that kind of thing. I sort of was I shifted gradually into like womb work and like womb energy work. And for a little bit, I had a business called Embodied Womb, where I was doing like womb readings, which was a really unique style of reading that just looked into the energy blocks that exist within the sacral chakra. I didn't really have a great time promoting or selling this. There didn't seem to be a lot of interest, but it was very unique. So eventually, I ended up writing into a woman who does Reiki. I moved to Arizona and then ran into a woman who does Reiki. I think I was just looking for more Reiki work and I just stumbled upon her and discovered she was a master. So I did get certified in Reiki 1, which is the Reiki form that you can do upon yourself. And I tried looking for a way to integrate that into some of the womb healing work I was doing and didn't quite find it. And then I found another woman online who was attuned to something called womb light. Now, womb light is very interesting. It is as it's promoted, the divine feminine essence of the Reiki energy. And for those of you who are not aware, Reiki is described traditionally as the divine life force energy. So, this is an energy that we all carry. This is an energy that exists throughout the universe. It is apparently an energy anyone can tap into. And within that energetic essence, womb light channels the divine feminine essence of it, if that makes sense. So the energy itself it's one I've sat with several times. It's immensely beautiful, very feminine, very nurturing, very grounding. And it's kind of like that energy that kind of just says to you, it's okay to step into your feminine. I'm here to nurture you, guide you, love you, and support you. And every time I have sat with that energy, I cried my eyes out. That's just how beautiful it is. So I did get certified in that level 1 and 2, along with Reiki. And I started to explore with that a little bit when I was helping clients. Now, I will say I don't use womb light very frequently. Usually I'm using the Reiki frequencies more just because they're so distinct in themselves. Now, I have been reading extensively about traditional Reiki, like the way it was done in Japan back in the 1930s when it was channeled by Usui. And the frequencies themselves are so unique and they're so specific and they serve such unique and vital purposes. And this is information that I didn't get when I was learning Reiki myself. So I think that's part of the reason why I've sort of gravitated towards the more traditional Reiki channelings, just because there's just more detail there that I didn't see or get when I was doing some of the trainings with these other individuals, to the point where I've come to recognize that not only do each of the Reiki frequencies feel different, but they also have different spirits associated with them that have their own specific wisdom. They're used on different parts of the body. And I operate on the three diamonds of the body, which is located in the third eye, the heart, and then the hara, which is the solar plexus chakra. That's usually where I work when I do my Reiki, because those spots all serve specific purposes. And I'm just like, this is so fascinating. Like the way this was traditionally done is just the most fascinating stuff. So if any of you are Reiki practitioners, I really do highly recommend, if you're interested, looking into the traditional teachings of Usui, because you'll be surprised how different it is from the way Reiki is taught today. Like my mind was completely blown and I was just like, I had no idea about half of this stuff. So it's honestly its own little rabbit hole. And like, I can't wait to dive further into this conversation and discussion, because in doing some of that energy work, I have even discovered more things. So, if you are a Reiki practitioner and you've done some of the teachings elsewhere and you're like curious about some of the traditional teachings, take a look at them because I think you'll be surprised.
Tiara is absolutely right. And we actually channeled Usui. It was just an idea that I had because I know that we're not going to dive deep into this, but I know that the traditional teachings have been changed Well, I don't know if change is the right word, but like people, once they learn this skill, they'll put their own spin on it. They'll put their own belief in it. They'll put their own, I mean, it's kind of like tarot. Actually, I think that's a great analogy because like with tarot, it's like every card has its own meaning. Like that will never change. Like every card is just going to have its own, like description, and then us psychics, or whatever word you guys want to use, it's just we then take the meaning of the card and then we use our intuition to intuit the message and like turn it into like your own story, which is very beautiful. And so I would say it's very similar with Reiki. So like we channeled Usui, and he was just saying like he understands why people have done it, and it's not that like I don't want to be disrespectful to anyone who does it, but he did acknowledge that is he's disappointed that there's been too many spins on it, too much lineage, too many different lineages in it, because it's just the traditional is very beautiful, and like this is a perfect example about how like knowledge gets misinterpreted or lost or transformed over time, because it's like the ancient knowledge that humans understand spirituality or new age today is not how it was taught tens of thousands of years ago. It's like, so that knowledge has, it's like it's been transcribed, and so it's just, especially in different, if it's been transcribed into different languages, for example, then like we lose that knowledge through every transcription because everyone is going to understand that knowledge differently. And it was such a fascinating conversation, and I actually learned a lot through it. But I know Tiarra, knowing this, has decided, I really want to get back to the traditional roots of Reiki. And I have a lot of respect for that because it is very beautiful. And I know that like I'm trying to figure out how old I was at the time. I was probably, I don't know, 1999, 2000, like when my mother became a Reiki 1. Like my mother studied Reiki 1 for over a year before she even considered going into Reiki 2. So Reiki 1 is like when you can only practice on yourself, and then Reiki 2 is when you can practice on other people. And when she became a Reiki 2, that's kind of when I became her guinea pig, and she did a lot of practice on me. So that was my introduction to Reiki. Now, I am not a Reiki practitioner. I am not, I that's not the route I want to go. I'm not going to get Reiki 2 certified. I am Reiki 1, so I can like practice like energy work on myself. It's most likely going to stop there for me. But I do think it's important like to emphasize the need to take time within the certifications, because I feel like people just rush and just become like, I want 1, 2, and 3 in 48 hours, and then they come out a master. And I'm just like, I that's not what it was intended for. So I'm not fully understanding. Maybe Tiara can, enlighten me on this, but I'm not fully understanding the rush.
So I I read a book, um, and these authors have done extensive research into Reiki, the traditional Japanese lineage, and went all the way back, like what I think maybe at least maybe not even 100 years, to look at not only what Usui taught, but also some of the things that his students transcribed. And their research went back so far that the Japanese that they stumbled upon is one that's not even spoken today. So they had to like go to people who are linguists and try to translate some of this ancient, it's not even ancient, I say ancient, but traditional Japanese that was only a couple characters at the time. The book is called The Reiki Source Book by Brownen and Franz Stein, and these two individuals are the founders of the International House of Reiki. So they're doing some really incredible stuff trying to promote the traditional style of Reiki, which I also respect. Now, in reading this book, I did notice, as Usui said in his channeling, that ego gets involved so heavily. And when those initial individuals were doing Reiki, there was always someone else who would get attuned, and then they would say, oh, well, I'm going to create my own style of Reiki and my own methods, and then I'm going to have my own students, and I'm going to step away from this style and do it my own way. And this happened multiple times where people sort of broke away from Usui, got their attunements, and then moved on to create their own styles and methods of Reiki because they wanted to say that it was theirs. And it's just so reflective of even today where ego just gets involved and everyone wants to be a master or be a part of the newest trends in Reiki, which I think the hot thing now is Holy Fire Reiki, which I did look at, but I wasn't quite sure it resonated with what I wanted. So it's so interesting how we see these beautiful methodologies and healing styles, and then our ego gets involved and just like takes it in a just different direction. But I wanted to share that I noticed that in some of the stories coming out of this book that I read. Now, to their credit and to their part, they sort of recognize that. Um, and in that, they recognize that perhaps one of the most purest forms of Reiki is the traditional methods. And that's what they focus on and promote, which is why, I'm fans of some of their work. So I wanted to share how oftentimes we let our ego interfere in things that are meant to help us and help us expand and evolve, and like how that can like interfere with that process and take away what was originally intended. Like I mentioned that today I look at some of these styles and I am just like, this doesn't look anything like what I read when it comes to the traditional Reiki. Now, sorry. Now, you do you. If there's a style that resonates with you that's not of the traditional style or method, that is perfectly fine. Just do what resonates for you. This just happens to resonate for me. And even when I'm doing Reiki, I do take in consideration that specific frequencies have specific purposes. And because I'm fortunate to also have the gift of channel, I do connect to the spirits tied to each of the frequencies. And it helps give a bigger, broader picture in regards to the need of the person I'm working on. And like, we're talking very wise beings, right? Like, these are beings that have, I believe most of them are ascended in some form or capacity. I haven't done a lot of research into the beings tied to each of the frequencies, but they're very, very knowledgeable, very, very wise. They have this beautiful, commanding presence that's so soothing, and you just feel like you're being supported and watched over when you hear them talk. And it's just the most profound, beautiful thing ever. Um, and I love that. So, I do try to take that and give it back to the person I'm working on so that they can see the beauty in the energy and how it really works when combined and used in the way that it was intended. So, I guess ultimately that's why I love Reiki so much. It's just like once you get down past the egoic layers of it, it's profound and incredible. Now, I did mention Womb Lights, which is a newer energy that was founded by a woman named Nicole Harlett. And she did come up with an attunement technique for this energy, an activation method. And it's an energy that's only used on the lower chakras because it's very grounding and it's sort of meant to connect you to the divine feminine essence. I mentioned I don't use that one very frequently, but it is a very, very beautiful frequency. So it's sort of just one of those things I sit with myself, or if I feel inclined to use it on a patient or a client, I do. Rarely, but if I feel inclined to, I do. I will say also, most of the energy that people need are the Reiki energies, especially Reiki 1, 1 and 2, but Reiki 1, which is the introductory energy, the very grounding energy, the energy that's was the first, I believe, that Usui connected to. So many people need this energy. Like it's incredible. So it is the one I work with most. So just wanted to share a little bit about my methods, which I get are probably unique to what some of the other people are doing with Reiki. And I get that. And I know that. And I don't mind being unique in that regard or in that way. I actually do like that. So it gives a little added layer to the energy work that I do to be unique in that regard. So yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about my methods.
So, do you think people rush through it because of ego?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And what's really interesting is when Usui was teaching students Reiki, he said that like Reiki 1 was the one you sat with and you did it on yourself. And you would sit with Reiki 1 for years and years and years before even getting attuned to work on people, because I realized that his original intent with Reiki was to clear blocks and to grow and evolve and work through your shadows. Like that was his original intention with Reiki. It was meant to help you evolve. You use it on yourself first before you could use it on and evolve and expand before you could do it upon someone else, which makes so much sense in hindsight. It makes so much
That actually
sense.
makes a lot of sense. So much
Yeah,
sense because and that's the thing that even guides will encourage is, I often hear this a lot in, with healers, and I hate it, but I also get it, but they also say that they're like, how can you heal people when you can't heal yourself?
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, that whole philosophy was not something I was taught by either of my master teachers. So when I saw that and I read that, I was like, that resonates so hard. But yeah, that's exactly what it was. He wanted his students to work on themselves before stepping on to work on others. And rarely, if ever, was anyone attuned to be a master. Like, rarely did he attune masters. There was only maybe a handful of individuals that he attunes to be masters. And many of these individuals went off to do their own offshoots and, like, do their own thing. So, absolutely. Like, if I were ever a master, if I ever become a master, I will probably align with a lot of his teachings because it makes so much sense. And Reiki was the kind of energy, according to some of his notes, that if you sat with it enough and used it consistently, you could identify blocks and have breakthroughs and revelations and evolve and learn and grow as a person. It's just like I for whatever reason in some of the more current teachings that's not expressed or communicated, and I don't quite know why. I really don't know why.
Well, I think we partially know why too, but I want to go back to what I just said about if you can't heal yourself, then how can you heal others? Now,
Mm,
I believe that there's a lot of truth to that, but I also recognize that there are a lot of amazingly gifted people that even if they don't know how to heal themselves, they offer their gifts to the world, and that's a beautiful thing. The only thing that I've seen with that is that when you don't heal yourself and you're offering your beautiful gifts to the world, is that you're taking on other people's energy. And when you're unhealed, that's when it becomes a burden to the unhealed healer because, they're sharing their gifts, they want to help you, and that's such a beautiful thing. And there are very skilled people out there who have the ability to share those gifts. It's just when you do it from an unhealed place, that's when you take on the energetic burdens of other people, and that's when it can start to affect like your own mental health and your self-worth. And that's why they always encourage you to heal people from a healed place so you don't take on that negative energy, so it doesn't affect your mental, it doesn't affect your mood, it doesn't affect your self-worth. And so I just kind of want to give some clarity on that because there is so much truth to that. You shouldn't step into healing other people's when you're that unhealed because of the cautionary tales of what it can do from an unhealed place.
Very interesting. Yeah, and I've actually heard stories of people experiencing just that. Well, actually, when I went to the Holy Fire information session and sat with the individuals there, including the master, who I actually love her because she's a traditionalist and she has a lineage that goes directly back to Asui, and I sought her out for that reason. But one of the individuals there talks about being a masseuse and how even doing that kind of work, you still take on the energies of other individuals. And like, I had no idea that even just doing massage work that could happen, like that same energetic exchange could happen. So, their whole thing with holy fire is that the thing that makes it so unique is that apparently holy fire is like that direct connection to divine source, right? Like the fire comes directly from source. There aren't any other spiritual entities involved. Like you're just going straight to source and then working with that energy to work through your own, shadows and issues and blocks. And they say that this frequency is, I don't know how true this is. They say that the frequency is easier to work with than the traditional Reiki frequencies. Again, I wouldn't know honestly. It's just I thought that was interesting that that was something that they were using to promote this frequency. But just based on what I learned, it seems like a very powerful energy to use and sit with. Now, again, I wasn't sure I wanted to get attuned to holy fire. My understanding is that the gentleman who created it sort of wanted something different from the Asui lineage, and just again, whether his ego was involved or not, I don't know. Created his own thing because there are some people who think that the traditional Reiki frequencies are hard to sit with and use. Now, I don't quite know what that means. The impression I get is that they think that kind of like some people struggle with ayahuasca and they're like, oh my god, it's just so much and it's so intense and it's just a lot and it's rough and it's brutal. I get the impression it's similar to what some people think with the traditional Reiki, because Reiki is just going to show it to you like it is, right? Like it's not going to sugarcoat, it's not going to like wince, it's just going to be straightforward about what's there and what you need to work on. Um, I I had a session recently and I did the same thing to the gentleman that I was working with. I was like, yo, this is what you need to work on. This is what came up. This is what you need to do. It's not going to be easy, but this is the message. I'm just sharing the message that's coming through. And some people, that's hard to sit with and it's hard to, look at that and reflect on that. So apparently people like Holy Fire because it's not as quote unquote brutal, whatever that means. I don't quite fully know. But I it's so interesting how each of these different methodologies just have their own perspectives and beliefs and fans, and it's like my goodness, like energy work should be energy work. Like it shouldn't have to be so nuanced and like broken down and just separate from each other, and it just makes my head explode. It makes my head explode at the end of the day.
Okay, well, I do want to go back to the piece where you said, people want the sugar coating and people I'm not saying that coating is for your best and highest good. I'm not making that claim. But Tiara, I think out of most people you understand like why sugar coating wouldn't be such a bad thing. It's very jarring. And I know you've been jarred and triggered.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, I did get a little bit of a taste of that energy when I was at the Holy Fire session. They did a little bit of work, and like the energy that came through was like, oh my God, it was so fluffy and warm and butterflies and rainbows, and I felt so good. And that's all great and dandy, but personally for me, I feel like I needed to be jarred. I don't know why I feel like that. I just feel like I needed that. Like personally needed
Well,
that.
I think the reason why you needed that is because you've experienced both sides. And the reason why Tiara has experienced both sides is because of her spiritual team, my spiritual team. We kind of we went through a very dark period with Tiara. And I think now that you've experienced both sides, I think that you have a different perspective to offer, especially our audience. But prior to being world turned upside down, like try to think about it from that perspective for the people who haven't had their world turned upside down, how beautiful and encouraging something like rapid fire would be.
Oh, right, sure, absolutely. And I don't know enough about the rapid holy fire frequencies to know how long you need to sit with them, or how much comes through, or what it typically pushes you towards. I don't know enough about it. Um, but if it's like, a softer process that's not so brutal and jarring, like I completely understand the appeal. I'm just not certain of its effectiveness, even though the individuals in the room were 100% convinced that it was the most effective energy. Like, I'm one of those individuals where I'm like, well, let me form my own opinion. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with holy fire. It's incredible. And I might still, if I have the opportunity, get attuned to it at some point in the future. I don't know yet, but it's it's just it's a different energy, and you got to find what aligns with you and what resonates with you. Holy fire resonates with a lot of people, and for me, the traditional methods resonate with me.
Okay, so that advice that she just gave, that's literally for anything. Anything that you do, anything that you're gonna dip your hand into, especially when you make the decision to help others. You need
Yes.
to know where you're doing it from because unfortunately, there's just we've talked about it before. There's so much imposter energy out there and there's so many imposter healers, and no, that's not everyone, not even close. I know incredible healers who are doing their part for the collective, and it is coming from a very beautiful and authentic place. It's just not
Mm,
everyone, unfortunately, carries that same mindset, or like here's the thing about, and we keep going back to ego because the ego tells you you're ready, you're going to step
mm,
into your power, you're going to help everyone. Now my question is, are you doing that from an authentic place, or are you doing that from an egoic place? And I know Tiara can speak on this. It's just like, because Tiara struggles with that to this very day. She's like, well, how do I know what's coming from an egoic place and what's coming from an authentic place?
mm-hmm,
And the answer to that is through self awareness, which is also its own rabbit hole because so many people believe that they have self awareness when in fact they really don't. And there have been studies on this. Like the study of self awareness is super fascinating. Like, I mean, I've just seen so many people say, like, oh, yeah, they surveyed like 1,000 people. And out of that 1,000 people, like maybe only 10 people actually had true self awareness when 96% of them believed that they were all self aware.
mm. Yeah. No, self awareness is its own rabbit hole and could also be its own probably podcast episode. You know, for for me, when it comes to trying to figure out, all right, is it ego aligned or is it authentic? I've recognized that just, with the assistance of, some of the stuff tools I found online and AI, that ultimately, if it's of the ego, it's something that's driven by an egoic need, whether it's tied to fear or worry or angst or anxiety or doubt. If it's authentic, it's fills your cup in some way. It feels aligned, it feels right, it resonates. You feel empowered when it comes to that, or it just feels like the right direction to take because it's just like that draw or pull or that gut feeling. So, using that as sort of like a guiding post, I've been trying to reframe frame some of the choices and decisions. And I used that same barometer for Reiki recently and then realized when I wasn't sure, because I did get to a place where I was like, well, I don't know if I want to do energy work. I don't know if I want to do tarot. I don't know if any of this stuff is for me. I don't know if I should just go get a 9 to 5 and just do that. Maybe that's for me. I know that I'm built for the matrix. If I'm built for the matrix, then shouldn't I just be doing matrix stuff, even if these other desires are here? Like that's the stuff that goes on my head because I'm pretty sure I have ADHD. But so when it came to Reiki recently, I did do that test. So I was like, okay, is this of the ego? Is this of the heart? And realized that no, I absolutely love Reiki. I love the frequencies. I love the energies. I go into sessions and I'm overwhelmed with emotion just because that's how beautiful it is. And, I'm so grateful to be able to sit with the energy, to channel it and help these people in the way that I am. Um, so sometimes you gotta just like test yourself, and there are different ways to do it. That was a method I chose. When it comes to any choice or decision, just test it. Like, is this something I'm doing because I'm scared, because I'm anxious, because I'm trying to impress, because I'm trying to make money? Or is it something I'm doing because it feels right? It excites me, it ignites me, it fills my cup. That has been really helpful for me. So maybe that'll be helpful for some of you guys when you're trying to make that distinction.
Another thing that I want to point out from an ego place, because Tiara kind of she went over like a lot of the negative things on why people make decisions for ego, like the fear, societal program, whatever. But the ego also likes to feel accomplished. The ego likes to get competitive. The ego likes to do things to fuel, pride, accomplishment. And so Tiara didn't really mention those. So it's like those are the other signs that you need to look for when you make these types of decisions. Are you doing it because you're just like, well, I want to be the best at it that there is? Because if you want to be the best at it, that's coming from a very egoic place. If you are doing it because you want to feel accomplished in some way, it's like, I mean, it's the same as like, oh, I want to be the best out of it. Best at it. It's coming from a very like, I'm accomplished place. That's all. These are all ego signs.
Yes. Now, I will say that just in my own journey, I've discovered that that sense and need for accomplishments is rooted in insecurity and fear. So, like, we want to validate our worthiness because for some reason at our core, we don't feel worthy. And so we kind of mask, we wear these masks of accomplishments to make ourselves feel more worthy.
Right.
Um,
It's imposter. That's exactly what
yeah,
imposter is. Yeah.
yeah. So definitely.
And so I think it's important that you guys understand like where is it coming from, because the frequency of authenticity is the highest frequency there is. And people don't understand that. And like people do not understand that when the ego is involved, you think I'm going to do it because I want to help people, which is great. But are you doing it from an egoic place or are you doing it from an authentic place? And that's what people need to differentiate. And people need to know where it's coming from. Because if you think you're just doing it from this very authentic place, but you're actually doing it from an ego place, it's like, what are you actually going to achieve? Because the universe is going to respond to the egoic, which is, for example, why I believe it's been very hard for Tiara to get some of these businesses off the ground, because she's just like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna make all this money, and like it's just like, okay, money is an aspect of it because it's a value of your worth, but it's a lot of people go into business not with the intention of truly wanting helping people, but like actually trying to build an empire. And so there's all these different scenarios, all these different things that can go on in the brain and go on in the ego that are egoic fueled, but you think you're doing it from an authentic place. And I think a lot of people get lost in that. And I know Tiara has.
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get lost into that because our society tells us that if you want to succeed, you do these things, and that's what success looks like. And if you're not doing these things, then you're a loser. So, of course, we internalize that and we apply it to every aspect of our lives. And then we have to unprogram ourselves away from that, which is a process. It's quite a process. So, yeah, absolutely. I completely understand that. I get that. I know what that looks like. And, I tried, at least when it comes to Reiki and also tarot, because, I love tarot in the same way I love Reiki, to not let it be about ego, but to let it be about, enjoying the tools and helping other people. Because at the end of the day, that's ultimately why we do these things, right? Like Reiki was grounded to be a means of helping people. It wasn't grounded to build an empire and create all these rules and requirements and charge tens of thousands of dollars for people to have access to it. Like, so we didn't do any of that. So it's just interesting to see that evolution from what was originally intended and how the ego got involved into what it is now. And I think when I was doing the information session for Holy Fire, like if you wanted to be a master, I believe they charge $10,000 for Holy Fire mastership. And I was just like, that is crazy. To me, that's crazy. Like to others, okay, maybe that makes sense. To me, I couldn't believe that. Um, and it just adds gatekeeping to something that should be available to the masses to the point that, and I don't blame them for doing this. Like, I get why they did this. Apparently, there's an organization in Japan that gatekeeps most of the original teachings of Usui. And it's like this organization that you can't join unless you're Japanese. Um, you have to be in Japan. They have a massive membership fee, and it's an entire organization in society that gatekeeps information that even the authors of the book that I read don't have access to. And I was just like, why? Why do we do these things? Like, here is some incredibly valuable healing information that could be so beneficial to the masses. And here we are gatekeeping it for those soul select few who are privileged enough to have access. And it just goes to show that humans are egoic by nature. That's just what we do, how we are. And unfortunately, that has consequences, as we've seen.
Oh, gatekeeping is huge. And it's not just gatekeeping with Reiki frequencies. I mean, people gatekeep so much because we have to, because we know what man can do. We know what humans can do. We know what the ego can do. We know what distortion can do. And it's so unfortunate, but it is really unfortunate, like Tiara said, but also I do understand it.
Absolutely. And maybe that's why. Maybe they saw the horrors of what happens through all these different lineages and the ego getting involved. And maybe they were like, this is our last way to protect the traditional original teachings. And we're going to do that. Like, I totally get that. It's just, again, unfortunate that that's the way that some of us have to operate in order to keep something sacred and in the manner that it was intended. Now, I do think it's possible for people to just go to Japan and get booked by one of these original teachers that have access to the original information from Usui. I think ultimately anyone can do that and get a treatment. It's just access to that is reserved for a very, very limited few. And I will always wonder what that information is, what it looks like, and what they're doing with it.
I mean, this kind of goes back to Dolores Cannon. I'm pretty sure Dolores Cannon only, correct me if I'm wrong, I have not studied her extensively, so this is just me kind of just spitfiring here. But I'm pretty sure she only passed her gift of QHHT to like 3 students or some. It was some incredibly low number, and I've always wondered like why so few, and how did you choose them? I'm assuming it was a multiple set of factors of just like, they were there for the right reasons. They wanted to learn, I'm assuming like she intuited that, like, I trust you to pass along my knowledge, because not everyone can be trusted with knowledge. I mean, if we go back to the Book of Enoch, which Tiarra and I have been talking about doing a whole episode on that. I have not read the book, but I think what we can learn from that story is that not everything or everyone can be trusted with certain amount of knowledge, because we have seen what how that knowledge has been transcribed, how it's been twisted, how it's been used. And so I understand the gatekeeping piece.
Oh, yes. And, now that you've broken that down, I definitely do too, to the point where I wonder if the massive prices that they charge for mastership is an element of gatekeeping. Like, it's just, and the author said this in the book, it's that like they understand the component of gatekeeping, especially if it's tied to money. But now you're leaving access to individuals who have monetary resources, and is was that the original intention? I don't know. I do know, like, in some of these societies back then, that money was associated with value and your worthiness in general, so maybe that's a component to it. I see issues with doing it that way as well, even though I completely understand why. So, you know I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's just I'm happy to have the little bit of knowledge I have in regards to Reiki, and to explore some of the more traditional methods and pathways. I'm happy with that little sliver of information, honestly. So it's just very interesting how deeply the ego infiltrates so many different things on this planet, so many different things that were meant to be for the best and highest.
Well, that's why we want to have a whole discussion about this planet and the Book of Enoch, because it is really fascinating to just see the duality, you know, played out in real time through this spiritual war, through physical war between countries, through, the imbalance of power, the imbalance of resources, the imbalance of money. And I mean, Earth is no joke. Like, this was all designed, like I believe it wasn't designed for this duality place and have total and complete free will. It's just, unfortunately, some dark forces of B, or the cabal, have taken this knowledge and was like, we're going to use it to manipulate man, and we're going to turn them into prisoners. And this is why people make claims that Earth is a prison planet, because people don't feel like we do have free will, because we have been programmed. People do not feel like they have any freedom in their lives, because they are hunkered and stressed out about bills and trying to live and trying to survive. Like, people do not feel like they have any say in their lives. And that is just it's a terrible thing to see, because the only way out of this hellhole is to ascend. And people don't have the energy or the time or the resources or the money to put energy into ascending. And, unfortunately, it's devastating to see what's happening on this planet, because, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and we are here to learn. But it's like, how can we learn when we're working 3 jobs and we're only sleeping 4 hours and we're struggling to put food on the table and we're hungry, we're stressed, we're,
Mm.
really facing real hardships here. And so it's just I understand like why you got to keep you have to keep certain things sacred because we have seen what having open knowledge, we have seen the consequences of that and
Mm,
what unfortunately the cabal has done on this planet.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation because we have discovered not only the extent to which the cabal has gone to distort and program people, but how they're doing it with universal law, like bending the rules of universal law to their advantage in a way that blows my mind, in a way that I didn't even know was remotely possible. So like it's a very interesting rabbit hole about like the fall of the in the book of Enoch they're referred to as the Watchers, and sort of what happened when the fallen angels kind of took hold of this planet and did what they did. It's a very interesting story. So we'll be doing that in some subsequent episodes. But if you're curious about just the planets and how it became what it is now, today, and sort of the process that took place to get it where it is, it's a very interesting conversation. So, just want to give you guys a heads up on that if you might be interested.
I just hope that someone that, our audience was able to learn what energy work is, the importance of energy work, the hidden the the hidden meanings behind energy work because Tiara's right, it was intended to, heal and help people. It wasn't intended to fuel egos. It wasn't intended
Right.
to, you know, like d- to who decided like I'm gonna gatekeep this information. Now it's like again the ego involved is like are you gatekeeping because you like the superiority of it or are you gatekeeping because you recognize that not everyone can be trusted with this type of knowledge. And these are all types of important questions that we need to ask ourselves, especially when we're out here helping the collective. I know amazing teachers who are in it for the right reasons. And unfortunately, I know some people who are not in it for the right reasons. And it's just, it's so heartbreaking because I know people who are in it for the right reasons are just not being seen and heard. And I believe, honestly, it's all by design because we don't actually own anything. We don't own the internet. We don't own marketing. We don't, you know what I'm saying? It's like the algorithms get to decide who sees us. And I've always questioned that. I've always have questioned these big spiritual teachers who are out there. I mean, I just question if they are actually aligned with the cabal, like leading you down the false ascension. And why does their content get pushed out? Versus the people that I know who are authentically in this, they can't get out of TikTok jail or Instagram jail or whatever you want to call it. And I just, unfortunately, the dark forces on this planet have thought of everything. They have every permutation scenario, they have premeditated it all.
Yeah, and they were higher vibrational beings. So I guess now these are dark high vibrational beings, which I didn't realize was a thing until recently. Um, but I want to shift just as we conclude this episode to those who are considering Reiki as a healing method, not just to deliver, but also to receive. I think it's important to clarify a couple expectations when it comes to Reiki. Reiki isn't something you can do one off and then just think that everything's going to be cleared and healed and you're going to be great. No, it's if you heard anything about what I mentioned before when it comes to Usui and his methods, Reiki was something that you needed to sit with for a long time, like years. Now, I don't know the extent of that when it comes to how long people were sitting with Reiki. Like, was it every day? Was it every other day? Like that, I'm not sure. I just know when it comes to the work that I do and the way I help people, I do recommend multiple sessions, like at least 4 to 6 to start, because Reiki is meant to build upon itself. Like each time you do more of it, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper subsequently. So it's something you have to be dedicated to. It's something you have to be consistent with. And the things that do come up, they're things that you must reflect upon and that you must integrate. So I just wanted to clarify that and add a little bit more realistic expectation when it comes to using these energies. Because if you want to go the Reiki healing path, you are going to have to sit with those energies and get accustomed to them for a while and become familiar with them and comfortable with them. And if you are consistent with that, it will help you unblock some of those deep blocks and work through some of those traumas. But it's going to take time and dedication. So I just wanted to leave that little tidbit.
I'm so thankful that you did that because I'm going to say it, it's for any and all healing. It's not one and done for any of this. It's not one and done for access bars. It's not one and done for EFT. It's not one and done for, I mean, hypnotherapy could be one and done. It depends on, but I mean, you're not going to get all of your questions answered in one, QHHT or
Mm,
QHT session. You know what I'm saying? It's like I understand, and unfortunately this is the programming of instant gratification.
mm-hmm.
We want the, okay, I want to do one session and like great, I'm healed. No, I'm sorry. Hate to, be the ball buster here. It's not the case. It's like that for any and all healing. It's not one and done.
Oh yeah, and it same goes for the plant medicines. I don't know why there is this belief out there that you can go to ayahuasca once and never again. Like last time I did, actually the time before I sat and did the medicine, like there were people who were working with the Taita who said that in order to get to where they were, to even be worthy enough to help the Taita with his sessions, they had to sit with the medicine for 5, 10 years, 15 years. And I was just like, wow, that is such dedication. Man, I admire that so much. So, it honestly goes to any healing method or methodology. Like it's gonna
Exactly.
require time and energy
And patience and
and
compassion
patience.
for
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Don't forget the compassion for yourself, people. Do not forget that because it's the compassion for ourselves that we forget and then we get frustrated and then we just get angry and then we end up
Mm,
quitting because
yeah,
we don't have the compassion and empathy for ourselves. It's like we feel like, oh, we're just not getting it and this doesn't make sense anymore and I'm just wasting time and energy. And then you get all angry and then you just quit and then you never address it again. And it's because people want that instant gratification. People want that, one and done experience. And it's not like that. And so it's just, if you take anything away from that, just know in healing, you need to have compassion and empathy for yourself. And if you don't get it, then don't be afraid to ask for help. And that's another part of the programming,
mm,
especially in America, hyper independence, independence. They think that you can just do everything yourself. No, like even, communities, tribes, no one was ever alone. You had elders for a reason. Ask for help. It's not shameful to ask for help. And it's like, that's why we were taught in school, especially elementary school, no question is a stupid question. Like there's a reason why you're taught that because they want you to they wanted us to feel encouraged, to make it us feel like it's okay to ask questions because it's like we learn through conversation. We learn through other people's knowledge. And if how are you going to learn from other people if you don't ever ask questions?
absolutely. Very, very true.
So,
So,
yeah, it is. There's just a lot of important things to remember in the healing journey that Tiara and I, kind of repeat a lot because it is important to remember. And I have to remind Tiara of so many teachings every day throughout the day.
Yeah, my energy is, or my energy, actually, yeah, well, that too. My memory is not the greatest right now. So, I feel bad that Allie's always having to remind me of these things, but there have been times where I can't even remember the conversation we had 2 days ago. So I'm working on that. It is related to energy. It's also related to mental energy, uh,
Trauma.
trauma, anxiety, all of that stuff just sort of creates a whirlwind in the mind that just destroys memory. Um, and it's actually really jarring and scary. So I'm
And
working
we
on that.
actually should have a conversation about we should have an episode on that. Like talk about, what trauma does to the memory. I think that'd be really
Yeah,
interesting.
that's a great idea. Make sure I add that right now. So I'm working on that. A big component of it is nutrition. A big component of it is like not worrying so much. And I know this is easier said than done, but worry and anxiety and angst and like mental spirals, they just do a number on the brain. Like it's devastating stuff that stuff does to the mind. So um, yeah, I think that would be a great conversation to have too. So I'm going to add that to the list. We have a whole list of topics, you guys, that we're always adding to. So look forward
It
to
keeps
that
it
one.
it keeps it interesting, and we just started season 3. This is our 3rd year going on this, and
Woohoo!
we do it because we also love it. Like we love, sharing our knowledge, which is why we also started a community, because we believe in community. We believe in proper healing methods, and I'm no master. I do not pretend like I know everything, because I don't. There's so much
Mm,
more I do not know, which is why in like I believe the last couple of recent episodes I call myself a perpetual learner. I just really enjoy learning, and I love going down these rabbit holes because I think that it makes the world interesting. It makes life interesting to know that there is life outside of the chaos of the matrix. Um, so yeah, we just started season 3. We like to thank everyone for sticking with us, and we just we will continue to do it no matter how many people we reach, because it's also a great outlet, and it's great for both of our throat chakras. So I just want to say thank you, and I really hope everyone has a fantastic week.
gotta love those throat chakras. Thanks, you guys.